My daughter knocked on the door at 3 in the morning. My heart almost stopped when I looked through the peephole and saw her there, standing in the pouring rain. The problem was that she had been dead for 5 years. When I opened the door, she whispered something that only the two of us knew, a secret I never told anyone. What happened next changed everything I believed about death and about life. But before we continue, check if you are subscribed to the channel Elderly Stories and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Teresa. I am 62 years old and I have lived alone since my husband passed away. But it was not loneliness that almost killed me. It was what happened one night in March when everything I knew about reality began to crumble. It all started with the phone ringing in the middle of the night. I was sleeping when the noise tore me from a confused dream. I opened my eyes and the first thing I saw was the digital clock on the nightstand. It was 3:17 in the morning. My heart was already racing before I understood what was happening. Who calls at this hour? No one calls at 3 in the morning with good news. I sat up in bed with my whole body tense. The phone kept ringing insistent as if whoever was on the other side knew I was awake and hesitating. My hand trembled when I grabbed the device. For a moment I thought about not answering. But something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe fear, forced me to press the green button. Hello? My voice came out, hoarse, almost a whisper. Silence. It was not that empty silence of a dropped call. It was a heavy silence, as if someone was breathing on the other side but holding their breath. I felt a chill run down my spine. Hello? Who is this? And then I heard it. A woman's voice, low and distant, as if coming from very far away. Mom. My blood froze. That voice. I knew that voice. Mom. I am cold. The phone fell from my hand and hit the floor. I stayed paralyzed in bed, shaking from head to toe. It could not be. It was not possible. That voice belonged to Sarah, my daughter, my sweet Sarah. But Sarah had been dead for 5 years. She was only 28 when she had the accident, a car crash on a rainy night coming home from work. They said it was instant, that she did not suffer. But I did suffer. Every day for the last 5 years, I suffered. And now, in the middle of the night, that voice. I picked up the phone from the floor with shaking hands. The call had cut off. I sat there in the darkness of my room trying to process what had happened. My rational mind tried to find explanations. I was dreaming. It was a sick prank. I was going crazy from so much loneliness. But deep in my heart, I knew. That was my daughter's voice. I got out of bed. My legs were wobbling. I put on my robe and went to the kitchen. I needed water. I needed to calm my nerves. The house was submerged in a suffocating darkness. Only the dim light from the street lamp entered through the cracks in the curtains, creating strange shadows on the walls. While I drank water leaning against the sink, I tried to convince myself it had just been a very real nightmare. I had dreamed of Sarah before many times. Sometimes I woke up crying, still smelling her perfume, still hearing her laugh. But that had been different. The phone had actually rung. I had actually answered. That was when I heard the noise. A soft creak, as if someone were stepping on the old wood of the hallway. I froze with the glass still in my hand. The house was completely silent except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. I waited, holding my breath. Nothing. I was about to convince myself I had imagined it when I heard it again. Footsteps slow and cautious. They were coming from the hallway that led to the front door. My heart pounded. I put the glass in the sink carefully, trying not to make noise. My mind was racing. Had a burglar broken in? But I was sure I had locked all the doors before sleeping. I always did it religiously since I was left alone. The footsteps stopped. Everything went silent again, and then I heard the voice. Mom. It came from the living room, the same low, distant voice. Sarah's voice. My legs moved on their own. I walked down the dark hallway with my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The living room door was ajar. A dim blue light was coming from inside. I pushed the door slowly. The living room was empty, but the television was on. Not on any channel, just that blue screen of no signal illuminating the room with its ghostly light. I was sure, absolutely sure, I had turned off the TV before sleeping. I approached slowly as if the television were going to explode at any moment. That was when I noticed. On the dusty screen, reflected in the blue light, there was something written. No, not written. Drawn. As if someone had run a finger through the dust on the screen. A heart. The same simple heart Sarah drew on everything when she was a little girl. On birthday cards, on notes, even in the margins of school notebooks. Always the same clumsy heart, a little crooked on the right side. My legs gave out. I grabbed the arm of the sofa so I would not fall. Sarah? My voice came out so low I could barely hear myself. The television turned off by itself. The room plunged into darkness. And then I heard the knocking at the door. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft, rhythmic knocks. The same rhythm Sarah used when she came home late and did not want to scare me. She always knocked like that 3 times, paused, so I would know it was her. I turned slowly toward the front door. My whole body was shaking. Part of me wanted to run to my room and lock the door, but another part, a bigger and stronger part, wanted to open that door. I needed to open it. I walked there as if in a trance. My hand reached for the doorknob, cold to the touch. I took a deep breath. I turned the lock. I opened the door. The hallway of the building was empty and dark. The automatic lights had not even turned on. Only silence and shadows stared back at me. But on the floor, right in front of the door, there was something. A scarf. A blue silk scarf with little white flowers. I knew that scarf. I had given it to Sarah on her last birthday. She was wearing it on the day of the accident. I picked up the scarf with trembling hands. It was wet, as if it had been out in the rain. But it was not raining. I pressed the fabric against my face and I smelled it. The perfume. Sarah's perfume was still there, faint but unmistakable. That was when I collapsed. I fell to my knees right there in the doorway, holding that scarf and crying. Crying for everything I had lost, for all the years of pain, and now for this impossible cruelty of something or someone making me believe she was back. I do not know how long I stayed there. When I finally managed to get up and close the door, the sky was already beginning to lighten. I went back to my room, but I could not sleep anymore. I sat on the bed, holding the scarf, trying to understand what was happening. The daylight brought a little sanity back. In the clarity of the morning, everything seemed less terrifying, more explainable. Maybe I had an episode. Maybe it was stress, loneliness, unresolved grief. I had read about that. People who suffer traumatic losses sometimes have vivid hallucinations. But the scarf was there, real and tangible in my hands. I decided not to tell anyone. Who would believe me? My sister already thought I was too depressed, always suggesting therapy. If I told her I was hearing Sarah's voice and finding her belongings appearing mysteriously, she would have me committed without thinking twice. I tried to follow my routine. I drank coffee, watched the news, pretended everything was normal. But my eyes always went back to the scarf left on the living room table, proof that I had not imagined it all. In the afternoon, I decided to do something I had not done in years, open Sarah's room. After she died, I locked that room and threw the key in a drawer. I could not go in there, see her things, feel her absence so concretely. It was easier to pretend the room did not exist, but now, after what had happened, I needed to go in. The key was where I had left it, at the bottom of the kitchen drawer under piles of old bills and receipts. I grabbed it and went to the locked door at the end of the hall. My hand shook as I fitted the key into the lock. For a moment, I hesitated. Would I be able to handle this? I turned the key and opened the door. The smell hit me first. That characteristic perfume of hers mixed with dust and stagnant air. The room was exactly how she had left it. The bed still unmade from the last day she slept there. clothes thrown on the chair, books piled on the nightstand. It was like entering a time capsule into a world where Sarah was still alive and had only gone out for a few minutes. I walked in slowly, every step heavy with memories. On the wall, photos of her at various moments of her life. Sarah as a child in her school uniform. Sarah as a teenager making faces at the camera. Sarah as an adult, graduated beautiful and radiant. I sat on her bed and let the tears flow. I had avoided this place for so long, but now it seemed necessary, as if I needed to be there to understand what was happening. That was when I noticed something strange. Her desk, usually covered in papers and pens, was clean. No, not just clean. There was something on it. A notebook. A notebook I had never seen before, with a black cover and no markings. I approached and grabbed the notebook. It was new. The pages still had that smell of fresh paper. I opened to the first page and my heart almost stopped. It was written in Sarah's handwriting. For Mom. Read when you are ready. I stood frozen holding that notebook. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. That penmanship I knew so well, with the S, always a little crooked, and the dots over the I turned into little circles. But how? This notebook was not here before, I was sure. Or was it? My mind tried to find rational explanations. Maybe I had put it there and forgotten. Maybe Sarah had left it for me before dying, and I, in the middle of the pain, simply had not processed it. But no, I knew every inch of that room. I had been the last person to enter there before locking the door. This notebook did not exist. With trembling hands, I turned the page. Mom, if you are reading this, then I managed to reach you. I know you are confused, scared. I understand. But I need you to listen to me. I need you to know the truth about what happened to me. My stomach churned. I sat in the desk chair, unable to stand. I continued reading. The accident was not an accident. I discovered something, Mom. Something someone did not want me to know, and that is why they silenced me. But death is not the end. Not when there are untold truths. Not when there is justice to be done. My hands shook so much I could barely hold the notebook. This could not be real. It was impossible. Dead people do not write messages. They do not appear in such vivid dreams. They do not leave their belongings at doors. But what if? I shook my head, trying to push away the crazy thoughts. I needed help. I could not deal with this alone. I grabbed my cell phone and called the one person I could trust, my niece Jessica. Jessica was a psychologist. If anyone could help me understand if I was going crazy or if something was really happening, it would be her. The call went to voicemail. I tried 2 more times. Nothing. I left a message asking her to call me urgently. I turned my attention back to the notebook. There was more text, but before I could keep reading, my cell phone rang. I answered quickly, hoping it was Jessica. Teresa. It was a male voice. It took me a second to recognize it. Frank. Sarah's ex-boyfriend. Frank? Hello? My voice sounded strange, even to me. Sorry to call you like this out of nowhere. I know it has been a while, but I need to talk to you, in person. It is about Sarah. My heart raced. What about her? There was a long pause on the other line. I cannot talk over the phone. Can we meet? Today? There was something in his voice. Urgency. Fear, maybe. Is everything okay, Frank? No, nothing is okay. Please, Teresa. It is important. A matter of life or death. Those words echoed in my head after I hung up. Frank had broken up with Sarah a few months before the accident. She'd been devastated at the time, although she never told me exactly what happened between them. And now, 5 years later, he shows up wanting to talk about her urgently. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown in 2 hours. This gave me time to try to process what was happening. I put the notebook in my purse. I was not going to leave it there, not after everything that had happened. I took a quick shower and got dressed. While I was putting on lipstick in the bathroom mirror, I had the clear sensation of being watched. I turned around quickly, but there was no one. only my reflection looking back at me with tired and frightened eyes. The coffee shop was a small, cozy place that Sarah loved. Irony or not, Frank had chosen exactly that spot. I arrived first and ordered a tea. My hands were still shaking. I tried to appear normal, but with every person who walked through the door, my heart skipped a beat. Frank arrived 15 minutes later. He had aged in those 5 years. His hair was graying at the temples, deep wrinkles around his eyes. But what impacted me most was the expression on his face. Pure fear. Teresa. He sat down quickly, looking around as if expecting to be followed. "Thank you for coming." "Frank, what is happening? You are scaring me." He took a deep breath. He ran his hands over his face. "I should have told this a long time ago. I should have gone to the police. I should have done something, but I was scared. I still am." "Told what?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Sarah's accident was not an accident. Someone sabotaged her car." His words confirmed what I had read in the notebook. I felt the ground crumble beneath my feet. "How do you know?" "Because she told me. A week before she died, she showed up at my house terrified. She said she had discovered something at work, something big. Fake documents, embezzlement, I do not know all the details. She worked at a big investment firm in the financial district. She had access to a lot of confidential information. Sarah never told me anything about problems at work, but I did not press her much either. She was always private about those things. And then I pressed. She said she was going to report it, that she had proof of everything, but she was scared because the scheme involved powerful people. Very powerful. I tried to convince her not to do anything, to just quit the company and forget it. We fought badly. That was the last time I spoke to her before the accident. "And you never told the police this?" He looked down. I was scared. After she died, I started getting threats, anonymous calls, strange messages telling me to stay quiet, not to ask questions. I was a coward, Teresa. I am a coward. But now they are following me. I'm sure of it. And last night... He stopped, his hands shaking as he grabbed his cell phone. He showed me a photo. It was the door of his apartment, and written in red paint in large letters, "Silence or Death." I felt a chill run through my body. "Frank, you have to go to the police now. I cannot, not without proof. And that is why I am here. I need to know if Sarah left you anything, any document, any flash drive, anything." She told me she had kept copies of the evidence in a safe place. I thought about the notebook in my purse. Was that it? But the notebook had only started writing about truths and conspiracy, nothing concrete yet. She never gave me anything I replied. She never even mentioned having problems. Frank seemed to collapse. Then we are lost. Without evidence, those people will remain unpunished, and they will keep coming after anyone who poses a threat. Why didn't you leave? Change cities, change countries? I tried, but they have eyes everywhere. The first month after her death, I planned to leave the country. The day I was going to travel, my car was vandalized. All my bank accounts were hacked. My passport disappeared mysteriously. The message was clear: there is no escape. We sat in silence for a moment. The noise of the coffee shop around us seemed distant, muffled. I processed all of that, trying to fit the pieces together. Teresa. Frank looked at me intensely. "If you discover something, any clue about what Sarah was investigating, let me know. But be careful. These people are not playing games." He got up to leave, but I grabbed his arm. "Frank, strange things have been happening to me. Very strange." I told him everything. The call in the middle of the night, Sarah's voice, the scarf, the notebook. He listened in silence, and his expression became increasingly grave. "Did you read the whole notebook?" "Not yet. Only the beginning." "Read it. Maybe that is it. Maybe Sarah found a way to communicate." "Frank, are you hearing what you are saying? Dead people do not write notebooks." He smiled sadly. 5 years ago, I would have agreed with you, but after everything I have seen, everything I have been through, I do not know what is possible or impossible anymore. After he left, I sat there with the cold tea in front of me. I grabbed the notebook from my purse and opened to the page where I had stopped. Mom, I know it is hard to believe, but I am here in some way, trapped between worlds. I cannot rest while my killers are free. I need your help. You are the only person I can trust now. I continued reading, and with every line, my horror increased. On my computer, there is a hidden folder. The password is your birthday followed by mine. In that folder, you will find everything, all the documents, all the evidence I gathered. But be careful, Mom. These people are dangerous. They killed me without hesitation. They will not think twice before doing the same to you. My computer. Sarah's laptop was in her apartment. After her death, I had packed all her things and put them in a storage unit. I never had the courage to touch anything. But the laptop? Where was the laptop? I tried to remember. Yes. It was in the closet of her room on the top shelf. I had left it right there along with her other electronics. I paid for the tea in a hurry and practically ran home. It was already getting dark when I arrived at the building. The hallway lights flickered slightly, casting strange shadows on the walls. I went up the stairs instead of using the elevator. I did not want to be trapped in a small space with the thoughts racing through my head. When I reached my floor, I noticed something wrong. The door to my apartment was ajar. I was absolutely sure I had locked it when I left. I always locked it. I pushed the door slowly with my heart in my throat. Is anyone there? Silence. I entered carefully. The living room was upside down, cushions thrown on the floor, drawers pulled open, books scattered. Someone had ransacked my home, and by the destruction they were looking for something specific. Afraid of making noise, I walked silently to Sarah's room. The door I had left closed was wide open. The room had been tossed too. The mattress ripped off the bed, the closet open, clothes scattered everywhere, and the top shelf of the closet was empty. The laptop was gone. I stood paralyzed in the middle of the destroyed room, trying to process what I was seeing. Someone had invaded my house, someone who knew exactly what to look for. Sarah's laptop with all the evidence she had gathered had disappeared. My first instinct was to call the police. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands, but before I could dial, I heard a noise. Coming from the kitchen. Footsteps, soft, cautious. There was still someone inside the apartment. My blood ran cold. I looked around for something to defend myself. I grabbed a metal paperweight that was lying on the floor. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, every step carefully silent. The kitchen door was closed. I took a deep breath. I gripped the paperweight tightly and pushed the door open all at once. Empty. But the window was open, the curtains fluttering in the wind. I ran over and looked out. It was only the third floor, but there was no one on the fire escape. Whoever had been there had managed to flee quickly. I locked the window and finally called the police. While I waited, I tried to see if anything else had been stolen. My TV was still there, my computer, my purse with money and cards. Whoever had broken in was not after a common robbery. They specifically wanted Sarah's laptop. The police arrived half an hour later. 2 bored officers who wrote down everything mechanically and told me there was little chance of recovering the laptop. When I asked if it could have been targeted, they looked at me like I was being paranoid. "Ma'am, it was probably just some junkie looking for things to sell," one of them said. "We've had several cases like this in the neighborhood. It was not worth arguing. They would not understand. Not without sounding like a crazy woman talking about notebooks appearing out of nowhere and voices of dead daughters on the phone. After they left, I tried to tidy up the mess a bit, but I was too exhausted physically and emotionally. I sat on the armchair holding the notebook, which luckily was still in my purse. That was when my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I thought about not answering, but something made me accept the call. "Hello?" Heavy breathing on the other side. Then a distorted voice as if going through a voice changer. "Stop looking. Who are you?" "That does not matter. What matters is that you stop asking questions. Forget the past. Accept that your daughter died in an accident and move on, or you will end up just like her." The call cut off before I could respond. I stood, staring at the phone, shaking from head to toe. The threat had been clear. I was in real danger. Part of me wanted to listen to the advice. Stop, forget, move on. It was the safe option, the sensible option. But another part, the part that had just discovered her daughter was murdered, could not just give up. I opened the notebook again, looking for more information. The next pages contained names. A list of people involved in the scheme Sarah had uncovered. Respected businessmen, influential politicians, people with power and resources to make anything disappear. One of the names caught my attention. Dr. Richard Montgomery. I knew that name. He was Sarah's boss at the investment firm. He had gone to her funeral. He had given me his condolences. He had even sent me flowers. All that time being kind and attentive, while he probably knew exactly what had happened to my daughter. I felt a rage burn inside me, a rage I had not felt in a long time. I was not going to let these people win. I was not going to let Sarah's sacrifice be in vain, but I needed to be smart. Alone, I was vulnerable. I needed allies. I grabbed my phone and called Jessica again. This time she answered. Aunt Teresa, sorry for not calling you back sooner. I was with a patient. What happened? I told her everything, every detail from the midnight call to the break-in. Jessica listened in silence, and I could feel the worry growing in her voice. Auntie, you have to get out of there. Now. Come to my house in the suburbs. I cannot run away, Jessica. Not when I am so close to discovering the truth. The truth is not worth your life. If these people are as dangerous as they seem, you are in serious risk. I know, but I cannot just give up on Sarah. There was a long pause. Okay, but you do not do anything alone. I am going to help you, and I know someone who can help us too. An investigative journalist, Jason. If you send me that information, he might know what to do with it. I felt relief knowing I was no longer alone in this. I took photos of all the pages of the notebook and sent them to Jessica. She promised to contact the journalist and call me back. After the call, I tried to sleep a little, but every noise made me jump. Every shadow on the wall seemed like a threat. At some point in the early morning, I finally fell into a restless sleep, and I dreamed of Sarah. She was standing in a dark place wearing the same clothes from the day of the accident, but there were no wounds, no sign of the trauma that killed her. She just looked at me with those sad eyes. Mom, you have to go to the office. There is one thing there they did not find. It is in my locker behind the old files, a red folder. It is the only copy left. Sarah. I am so scared. She smiled that smile I knew so well. I know, but you are stronger than you think. You always were. I woke up with the sun coming through the window. The dream had been so vivid it seemed real. A red folder in her locker. Was it just my subconscious creating clues where there were none? Or was it really Sarah trying to guide me? I decided to take the risk. Sarah's office had closed 3 years ago, but the building in the financial district still existed. If I managed to get in, maybe I would find something. Jessica called me early. Auntie, I spoke to the journalist Jason. He wants to meet with you this afternoon, but there is something. He investigated some of the names you sent. This is big, Auntie. Very big. It involves international money laundering ties to criminal organizations. If Sarah's evidence is solid, it can take down a lot of powerful people. And is that good? It depends. For justice, yes. For your safety, not so much. These people will do anything to protect their secrets. Then I need to find the evidence before they destroy it. I told her about the dream and the red folder. Jessica hesitated. Auntie, I do not know if that is a good idea. Breaking into a building? It is not breaking in if I had access. Some old employees must still be there. I can say I went to get Sarah's personal things. Okay, but I am going with you. We agreed to meet in front of the corporate building at noon. In the meantime, I tried to organize the mess left in the apartment a bit. Each object I picked up reminded me of Sarah. Photos, letters, small personal items. My daughter had left so much of herself in that place. I found a box under the bed that had not been touched by the intruders. Inside were old photo albums. I sat on the floor and started leafing through. Sarah as a baby, a child, a teenager. Every photo a memory, every memory a dagger to the heart. At the bottom of the box, I found something unexpected. A letter addressed to me in Sarah's handwriting but never opened. The envelope was yellowed as if written a long time ago. I opened it carefully. The letter was dated 6 years ago, 1 year before the accident. Mom, if you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. I want you to know that I always loved you more than anything. And I want you to know that if something happens to me, it was not an accident. There are things I discovered, things I cannot tell now. But I kept proof. In the office in my locker, there is a red folder. In it is everything. If something happens to me, please find that folder. Get justice. I love you forever, Sarah. My tears fell onto the paper. Sarah knew. She knew she was in danger and had tried to warn me. But for some reason, that letter never reached me. Maybe she lost the courage, or maybe she thought she was being paranoid. Now I was sure. The dream had not been a coincidence. The red folder existed, and I needed to find it. Jessica was waiting for me in front of the office building where Sarah had worked in the financial district. The building was one of those immense glass towers, cold and impersonal. Looking at it, I imagined how many secrets those walls held. Auntie, are you sure about this? Jessica grabbed my arm as we walked toward the entrance. I am sure. The receptionist was new. She did not recognize me. I said I was there to pick up personal belongings of my daughter who had worked there years ago. She hesitated, but after some explanations and showing my ID proving I was Sarah's mother, she let us pass. The floor where she worked is now occupied by another company, she informed us. But the old lockers are still in the back in the storage room. I do not know if anything of your daughter's is left. We took the elevator to the 10th floor. My stomach churned with every floor that passed. When the doors opened, we were greeted by a modern reception full of plants and a smiling secretary. Can we help with something? I explained again. She was kind, sent an employee to guide us to the storage room. It was a large room at the back of the floor filled with stacked cardboard boxes and old furniture. In the corner, there was a row of rusty metal lockers. These are from your daughter's old company, the employee explained. We have never touched them. If you want to look, feel free. I will be back in a while. As soon as he left, Jessica and I started searching. There were about 20 lockers. Most were empty or full of old papers and office supplies. Auntie, look at this. Jessica pointed to a locker in the corner. It had a faded label with the name S. Santos. Sarah Santos. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I did not have the key. I looked around for something to force the lock. Jessica took a bobby pin from her hair. I learned this in a movie, she said with a nervous half smile. It took a few minutes of frustrated attempts, but finally the lock gave way. The locker opened with a squeak. It was almost empty. Some old pens, a forgotten jacket. And at the back, behind a stack of empty folders, a red folder. My heart raced. I grabbed the folder with shaking hands and opened it. Inside were documents. Many documents. Financial reports, bank statements, printed emails, photos, and a flash drive taped to the inside cover. This is it, I whispered. This is really it. Jessica looked over my shoulder with wide eyes. Auntie, this has names of congressmen, businessmen. My God, Sarah uncovered a giant scheme. I closed the folder quickly. We need to get out of here. Now. But when we turned toward the door, it opened. 3 men entered. One of them I recognized from the funeral photos. Dr. Richard Montgomery, Sarah's old boss. Teresa, he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. What a surprise to find you here. Dr. Montgomery? I tried to keep my voice steady, hiding the folder behind me. He noticed the movement. Looking for something specific? Just my daughter's personal things. Of course. He took a step forward. The 2 men with him, clearly private security, blocked the door. You know, Teresa Sarah was an exemplary employee. Dedicated, intelligent, a shame what happened. It was truly a shame, I replied, feeling Jessica tense beside me. Such a tragic accident. Accidents happen, he shrugged, especially when people get involved in things they should not. Like my daughter? His smile vanished. Sarah was too curious for her own good. She asked questions, investigated things that did not concern her. I tried to warn her, but she did not want to listen. So you admit it. My voice came out stronger than I expected. You killed her. He laughed. I did not kill anyone, Teresa. I simply let nature take its course. Faulty brakes are so common on old cars. I felt Jessica squeeze my hand. She was terrified. I could feel it. What do you want? I asked. That red folder you are holding is the only thing left. We thought we had destroyed all copies, but Sarah was smart. She hid one where we would not look. And if I do not give it to you, he gestured to the guards, then we are going to have to take it. And it would be a shame if something happened to you and your niece. Another tragic accident. I looked at Jessica. She was pale, but there was determination in her eyes. I looked at the folder in my hands, all Sarah's work, all the evidence, everything she had died for. No, I said. Richard Montgomery raised his eyebrows. No, I am not going to hand it over. My daughter died for this. I am not going to let it be in vain. He sighed. Have it your way. He signaled the guards. They began to advance. I knew I stood no chance against them. But before they could get close, the storage room door burst open. Police! Nobody move! 3 police officers entered, guns drawn. Behind them, I recognized Frank. He had called the police. What is the meaning of this? Richard Montgomery tried to maintain composure, but I saw the panic in his eyes. Richard Montgomery. One of the officers stepped forward. You are under arrest for qualified homicide, criminal conspiracy, and money laundering. This is ridiculous. You have no proof of anything. I held up the red folder. Yes, we do. All right, here. Richard Montgomery's face went pale. He looked at me with pure hatred. You do not know who you are messing with. Yes, I do, I replied. With murderers, and you are going to pay. The officers handcuffed Richard and his guards. While they took them away, Frank approached. I got your message from Jessica. I thought it was better to bring backup. Thank you, I murmured, still shaking from the adrenaline rush. In the following days, everything happened fast. The content of the red folder was even more explosive than we imagined. Besides the names, we already knew there was evidence of corruption at multiple levels of government, international money laundering, and ties to organized crime. Sarah had spent months gathering this evidence, documenting every suspicious transaction, every compromising conversation. She had been meticulous, careful, and she had paid the ultimate price for her bravery. The journalist Jason, whom Jessica had contacted, did a series of reports. The story exploded in the media in Mexico City and beyond. Arrests were made. Politicians resigned. Companies were investigated. It was a national scandal. And during all this, I carried Sarah's notebook with me. Nothing else had appeared in it since that first message, but I felt she was still close in some way watching while justice was finally being done. One night, a few weeks after the arrests, I was at home organizing the case documents. The phone rang. Without thinking, I answered. Mom. Sarah's voice clear as crystal. Sarah? You did it, Mom. You did what I could not do. I am so proud of you. Tears rolled down my face. Are you at peace now? I am. I can move on. But Mom, there is one thing I need you to know. What? That night before the accident, I was going to visit you. I was going to tell you everything. But I was scared of putting you in danger. I thought it would be safer to keep you away from this. Sarah, it was not your fault. I know. But I needed you to know. And I needed you to know that I love you. I always loved you. In every moment, in every breath. You are the best mom anyone could have. I love you too, my sweetie, so much. Goodbye, Mom. Take care and be happy. Live the life I could not live. The call cut off. And somehow I knew it was the last time. Sarah had achieved what she needed. Now she could rest. The following months were an emotional roller coaster. The trial of Richard Montgomery and his accomplices dragged on each hearing, bringing new shocking revelations. I was there at all of them, sitting in the front row holding Sarah's photo against my chest. The defense attorney tried everything, questioned the authenticity of the documents, claimed they were montages that they had been planted. But the experts confirmed everything was real. Every signature, every transaction, every compromising email. Sarah had been flawless in her investigation. During one of the hearings, I looked at Richard in the defendant's dock. He was different from the confident man I had faced in the storage room. He was thinner, with deep, dark circles. When our gazes met, he looked away quickly. But not everything was a victory. One night coming back from the hearing, I noticed a car following me. It was a black sedan with tinted windows. It followed me for 3 blocks until I parked in front of a police station. Only then did it pull away. The threats returned too. Anonymous calls, messages on social media. You signed your death warrant. Not all the police in the world can protect you. We are going to get you when you least expect it. Jessica insisted I come live with her temporarily in her apartment in the suburbs. I refused at first, but after waking up one night with my window broken and a rock in the middle of the living room with a threatening note, I ended up giving in. Her apartment was small but cozy. It had a guest room where she set up a space for me. The first few nights I could barely sleep. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow was a potential threat. "Auntie, you have to talk to someone," Jessica told me one morning after finding me awake for the 3rd night in a row. A therapist. All this is too traumatic to process alone. She was right. I started going to therapy twice a week. At first, it was hard. Talking about Sarah, about the discovery that she had been murdered, about the threats, about the constant fear. But slowly, it began to help. My therapist, Dr. Claudia, was a calm woman in her 50s. She never judged me when I told her about Sarah's calls, about the notebook appearing, about feeling her presence. Grief manifests in mysterious ways, she explained in one session, especially when there are unresolved issues. Your mind may have created these mechanisms as a way to process the loss and seek justice. But what if it was not my mind, I asked. What if Sarah really found a way to communicate? Dr. Claudia smiled softly. Even if it is real in the supernatural sense, it does not matter. What matters is that you found the strength to seek the truth to get justice. Sarah, from wherever she is, must be proud. While the trial continued, the journalist Jason kept the story alive in the media. He was a man in his 40s, gray hair, always with a folder full of papers and a recorder in his pocket. We met regularly so he could keep me updated on the investigation's developments. Other names were being investigated, other threads were being pulled. The scheme uncovered by Sarah was even bigger than we imagined. "Teresa," he told me in one of our meetings, "your daughter was a hero. You know that, right?" I smiled sadly. She was my daughter, my brave girl who always wanted to change the world, and she changed it. Thanks to her, dozens of corrupt people are being held accountable. Millions of dollars embezzled are being recovered. Laws are changing. It was comforting to know that Sarah's death had not been in vain. But nothing would bring her back. Nothing would fill the void her absence left. One afternoon, I was at Jessica's apartment when the phone rang. It was Frank. "Teresa, you have to see this. Turn on the TV to the news channel." I turned it on, and there it was in big letters. Richard Montgomery and 9 other defendants convicted. The sentences total more than 200 years in prison. I sat on the sofa with my legs shaking. It was done. Finally, it was done. Justice had been served. Jessica came home from work and found me crying on the sofa, still watching the news. She sat next to me and hugged me. "She can rest in peace now," Jessica whispered. "And you too." But there was something that still bothered me. A name on Sarah's list that had never been mentioned in the trial. A name I recognized but could not remember from where. Patrick Carter. I searched the documents I had copies of. Patrick Carter appeared in several emails, always peripherally, never directly involved, but always close, like a shadow. I asked Jason about him at our next meeting. "Ah, Carter." He frowned. "That one is complicated. He is a very well-connected businessman, a lawyer by profession. Many powerful people have him as an advisor. But he is slippery as an eel. We could never get concrete evidence against him. But was he involved? Probably, but you know how it is. The big fish always have layers of protection, straw men, offshore accounts, shell companies. Even with everything Sarah uncovered, he managed to stay clean. This bothered me. The idea that someone involved in my daughter's murder was still free living his life normally. I started researching Patrick Carter on my own. The nights I could not sleep, I stayed on the computer looking for information. It was surprising how much one could discover with some persistence and basic internet knowledge. Carter was truly well-connected. Photos of him at high-level social events, married, 2 daughters. A seemingly perfect life, but there were cracks if you knew where to look. Companies that had gone bankrupt mysteriously after lawsuits he handled. People who had disappeared after threatening to expose schemes he was involved in. I was so absorbed in the investigation that I did not notice Jessica standing in the bedroom door. "Auntie, what are you doing?" I jumped, closing the laptop quickly. "Nothing, just researching." She came in and sat on the bed next to me. "Auntie, you have to stop. The trial is over. The guilty are in prison. You have to move on." How can I move on knowing there are people who helped kill my daughter and are free out there? Because you cannot save the world alone. Because you already did more than anyone could expect. Because you need to live your life. I knew she was right, but something inside me could not let it go. That night, I had a nightmare. I was driving on a dark highway. Suddenly, the brakes failed. I tried to stop the car, but it only accelerated. In front of me, I saw Sarah standing in the middle of the road. She did not move, she just looked at me. I tried to scream to warn her, but no sound came out. The car was going straight toward her, and I woke up sweating with my heart racing. It took me a few seconds to remember where I was. Jessica's apartment. Safe. Sarah had died 5 years ago. It was just a nightmare, but it felt so real. I got up and went to get water in the kitchen. It was 3 a.m. The city outside was silent. I looked out the window at the empty streets below. That was when I saw it. A car parked on the other side of the street. Black sedan. Engine off, but there was someone inside. I could see the glow of a lit cigarette. My stomach churned. I was being watched. I woke Jessica up. She saw the car too. We called the police. When the patrol arrived 15 minutes later, the sedan was already gone. Probably just someone waiting for a friend, the police officer said, disinterested. "You are very nervous, ma'am. Understandable after everything that has happened." But I knew it was not paranoia, it was real. The next day, Jason called me. "Teresa, I need to tell you something, but not over the phone. Can we meet?" There was something in his voice that made me nervous. We agreed on a discreet coffee shop far from downtown. When I arrived, he was already there stirring a cup of cold coffee nervously. "What is it?" I asked as I sat down. He looked around before leaning forward. I received information from a source. Patrick Carter was not just involved in the scheme, he might have been the mastermind behind Sarah's murder. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" He was the lawyer shielding the whole scheme. When Sarah started investigating, he was the one who ordered her silenced. Richard Montgomery was just the manager. Carter was the boss. "And why didn't you take this to the police?" "Because I do not have proof. They are just rumors, conversations captured informally. Nothing that holds up in court. And Carter is too powerful. If I publish this without concrete evidence, he sues me and probably destroys me professionally. So he is going to stay unpunished unless concrete evidence appears, yes." I left that coffee shop with my head spinning. Carter, the true person responsible for Sarah's death. And he was out there free, probably watching me to make sure I did not discover this. That night alone in the guest room, I grabbed Sarah's notebook. I had not opened it in weeks. The pages were still the same. No new message had appeared. "Sarah," I whispered to the void, "if you can still hear me, I need help. How do I catch Carter? How do I prove he was the one who ordered you killed?" I did not expect an answer. But when I woke up the next day, there was something in the notebook. A page that I was sure was blank the night before now had something written. "Search the safe deposit box, central bank account, 41882 password date of my birth." I stood staring at the words in the notebook with my heart racing. How was this possible? I had checked the notebook the night before, and that page was blank. Now there it was with Sarah's unmistakable handwriting giving me specific instructions. Part of me wanted to rationalize. Maybe I had written this while sleepwalking. Maybe my subconscious knew something my conscious mind did not process. But looking at that penmanship so perfectly identical to Sarah's, it was impossible to deny. My daughter was still trying to help me. I called Jessica and showed her. She went pale, seeing the new message. "Auntie, this is not possible." "I know, but it is here. A safe deposit box at the central bank. Did you know Sarah had a safe?" I shook my head. I had no idea. Sarah had never mentioned anything about a safe, but it made sense. If she was investigating something so dangerous, she would have kept the most important evidence somewhere safe. And what was safer than a bank vault? We went together to the central bank the next morning. My stomach was churning with nervousness. I presented my ID and the safe deposit box number. The employee checked the system. "Are you Teresa Santos?" "Yes, you are listed here as a co-holder of safe deposit box number 4782, along with Sarah Santos." My heart skipped a beat. Sarah had put me as a co-holder. She had planned this. She had ensured that if something happened to her, I would have access. "I am going to need you to enter the password, ma'am," said the employee, guiding me to a private room where the boxes were. I entered Sarah's birth date on the electronic panel. A click. The heavy door opened. Inside the safe was a metal box. I took it out with trembling hands and opened it. Inside was a flash drive, some documents, and a letter. I opened the letter first. It was addressed to me. "Mom, if you are reading this, it means my suspicions were correct and something happened to me. In the flash drive are the final proofs I needed. Recordings of conversations, original documents showing the true leader of the whole scheme. I could not take this to the police yet because I needed a few more pieces. But now you have everything. Use it carefully. These people are dangerous, but I know you are strong enough to do the right thing. I love you eternally, Sarah." Jessica read the letter over my shoulder. "Auntie, this is wow." We went back to her apartment with the box. We connected the flash drive to the computer. There were dozens of files, audio recordings, videos, scanned PDFs. We started with the audio files. They were phone conversations apparently recorded secretly, and in several of them, a voice I did not recognize gave orders. "We need to get rid of her. Sarah Santos is digging too deep. How do you want us to handle it?" "I do not want to know how. Just make it look like an accident and leave no trace." My blood froze hearing that. It was the proof, the direct order to murder my daughter. "I need to know whose voice that is," I said, shaking. Jessica was investigating the other files. "Auntie, look at this. Videos." We opened one of the videos. It was a shaky recording apparently made secretly on a smartphone. It showed a luxurious office. And there, sitting behind a huge desk, was Patrick Carter. "The plan is working perfectly," he was saying to someone off camera. "We are embezzling millions and no one suspects. But we have a problem." An auditor started asking questions. "Sarah Santos, what do you want us to do, sir?" "Fix it." Discreetly. I paused the video. I was shaking so much I could barely hold the mouse. There it was, concrete proof that Patrick Carter had ordered Sarah's murder. "We need to take this to the police." "Now," said Jessica. But before we could do anything, her cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated before answering, putting it on speaker. "Jessica Ferreira?" A male voice, calm, almost gentle. Who is this? That does not matter. What matters is that I know what you have. The contents of Sarah's safe. We looked at each other, panic rising. How do you know? I have eyes in many places. Did you think you could walk into a bank, open a safe, and no one would find out? Please. What do you want? I asked, taking the phone from Jessica's hands. Teresa. I always wanted to speak directly with you. I am Patrick Carter. I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. Look, Teresa, I am very sorry about what happened to your daughter. Truly. But she got involved in dangerous things. She left me no choice. You killed her. My voice came out like a growl. I gave orders to solve the problem. It is different. It is the same thing. He sighed. You have evidence against me. I understand, but here is the issue. If you try to use that evidence, you both die. It is that simple. I have resources, Teresa. Resources you cannot even imagine. Are you threatening us? I am being realistic. Sarah tried to be a hero. Look where that got her. Do you want the same fate? I prefer to die than let you go unpunished. How noble. But think about your niece. Jessica has her whole life ahead of her. A boyfriend, a promising career. It would be a shame to waste all that because of a misguided sense of justice. Jessica was pale beside me, her hands shaking. I am going to make a proposal, Carter continued. Destroy the evidence, forget all this. And in exchange, I guarantee you live in peace. You will never hear from me again. You can go on with your lives. And you stay free. I have always been free, Teresa. And I always will be. The difference is whether you and Jessica are going to be alive to see it. The call cut off. We sat there in silence for a long moment. The flash drive was still connected to the computer, the screen showing the files that could destroy Carter. What do we do? Jessica whispered. I looked at her. My niece. My only remaining family. She was terrified. And with reason. Carter was not lying. He had killed Sarah without hesitation. He would do the same to us. But if we destroyed the evidence, Sarah would have died in vain. The true culprit would remain free, and he would keep making victims. Auntie, please. Jessica grabbed my hand. It is not worth it. Sarah is already gone. I am still here. You are still here. We need to think about us. I knew I could not just give up. Jessica, you do not have to be involved in this. Go back to your house, to your life. I am going to do this alone. No, I am not going to leave you. This could kill you. Then we will die together. But we are not going to let that monster win. I looked at my niece with tears in my eyes. She was so brave, so much like Sarah in that moment. Okay, but we are going to do it the right way, with protection. We called Jason, the journalist. We told him everything. We sent copies of all the files. He stayed silent for a long time after seeing the evidence. This is it. This is going to destroy him, completely. But he threatened to kill us if we publish. Then we need police protection. I am going to talk to my contacts, and I am going to publish everything. If the evidence is public killing, you will not do any good. It was a risky plan, but it was the best one we had. Jason worked fast. In 48 hours, the article was ready. A full investigation with all the evidence Sarah had gathered, plus the audios and videos from the safe. Everything documented, verified, irrefutable. The night before publication, I could not sleep. Jessica neither. We sat in the living room with the lights on waiting. 2 police officers stood guard at the door. Security Jason had managed to get. At 6 in the morning, the article went live. At 6:05, my phone started ringing nonstop. Journalists wanting interviews. Friends asking if everything was okay. Strangers offering support. At 7, the police called. Patrick Carter had been arrested at his home in the hills, along with 3 more accomplices. I turned on the TV. There it was on all the news channels. Lawyer Patrick Carter, arrested. New evidence reveals central role in corruption and homicide scheme. I collapsed on the armchair, crying. It was done. Finally, truly done. Jessica hugged me. Sarah is at peace now. I nodded, unable to speak. That night, I opened Sarah's notebook one last time. There was one last message written in handwriting that seemed to be fading. Thank you, Mom. Now I can go. I love you forever. Be happy. And then while I watched, the letters began to disappear, one by one erasing themselves as if they had never existed, until the page was completely blank. I felt a presence beside me. It was not scary or cold. It was warm, familiar. And then I heard, not with my ears, but with my heart, Sarah's voice. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, my love. I whispered to the void, rest now. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt she was truly at peace. The months following the second trial were a blur of hearings, testimonies, and media attention. But this time, it was different. There was no fear anymore. There were no more threats. Patrick Carter and his accomplices were in jail, and the evidence against them was unquestionable. His trial was even more high-profile than Richard Montgomery's. After all, we were talking about one of the most powerful lawyers in the country, someone who had moved in the highest circles for decades. His fall was spectacular. I was there at all the hearings, sitting in the same front row, holding Sarah's photo. But now there were others beside me. Jessica, Frank, Jason. I was no longer alone in this fight. Carter tried everything. His lawyers were the best money could buy. They claimed the recordings were illegal, that they had been edited, that they were taken out of context. But it did not matter. The prosecution had reconstructed the entire scheme. Every transaction, every order, every death he had ordered over the years. Sarah had not been the first, only the most recent. When the day of the verdict finally arrived, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, victims of other crimes Carter had committed, onlookers, everyone wanting to see the powerful man finally answer for his crimes. Patrick Carter was found guilty of all crimes: qualified homicide, criminal, conspiracy, money, laundering, active corruption. The list was long. The sentence was even longer, 87 years in prison. When the judge struck the gavel, I heard a collective sigh in the room. It was the sound of justice finally being done. I left the court that day feeling as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Sarah could rest. I could rest. Jessica and I went straight to the cemetery. There were fresh flowers on Sarah's grave. Someone had been there recently. I thought of Frank, who visited the grave every week without fail. We did it, Sarah, I said softly, kneeling next to the tombstone. We got them all. You can rest now. The wind blew gently, moving the flowers, and for a moment I swear I felt Sarah there with us, not in a scary or supernatural way like before, just present in peace. That night, I went back to my apartment for the first time in months. I had lived with Jessica since the threats, but now I finally felt safe to return. The apartment was exactly how I had left it. The mess from the break-in had been cleaned up thanks to Jessica, but everything was in the same place. Sarah's photos on the walls, her things scattered around the apartment. I walked through the rooms, touching every object, every memory. It was painful, but it was a different kind of pain. It was no longer that sharp, desperate pain of fresh grief. It was a soft, nostalgic pain. The pain of someone who lost a loved one, but manages to remember them with affection. I entered Sarah's room. For the first time since her death, I managed to sit on her bed without breaking down in tears. I looked around at all the pieces of her scattered around the room. You were so special, I murmured. So brave, so determined to do the right thing. I was so proud of you, I still am. I grabbed one of the teddy bears she kept on the bed. It was old, worn. It had been her favorite when she was a little girl. I hugged it against my chest. I miss you so much, every day. But I am going to be okay. I am going to live the life you could not live. I am going to be happy for both of us. I lay on her bed hugging the teddy bear, and for the first time in 5 years, I slept through the night without nightmares. I woke up with the sun coming through the window. I got up and went to make coffee. While I waited for the water to boil, I grabbed Sarah's notebook. It was blank now. All the messages had disappeared. But I did not care. I no longer needed supernatural messages. I had the memories. I had the keepsakes. I had everything Sarah had left in life. Jessica called me mid-morning. "Auntie, how was the first night?" "Peaceful. I managed to sleep." "That is good. Listen, Jason wants to meet with us. He said he has a proposal." We met with Jason at a restaurant downtown. He was excited in a way I had not seen in months, so he began after we ordered. "You know, Sarah's story caused a huge impact, not just because of the arrests, but because of her bravery. A lot of people were inspired. It is a good feeling to know her death was not in vain," I replied. "More than that, she changed things. New laws are being proposed for the protection of whistleblowers. Companies are reviewing their policies, and many other people who were afraid to report corruption schemes are now taking the step. Sarah would be happy to know that. And that is why I want to write a book telling the complete story, not just the scheme and the trial, but your journey, the struggle of a mother for justice, the legacy of a hero." I looked at Jessica. She smiled excitedly. "I do not know Jason. It is very personal." "I know, and I will not do it without your permission. But think about it. How many other people are going through the same thing? They lost someone in suspicious circumstances. They suspect something but do not know where to start. Your story can help. It can inspire. It can save lives." I thought about it. The idea of exposing my pain, my journey to the whole world, was terrifying. But if it could help other people, if it could keep Sarah's legacy alive— "Okay," I said finally. "But I want to be involved in the process. I do not want Sarah's story to be distorted or sensationalized. Of course, you will have full editorial control." We spent the following months working on the book. Jason interviewed me for hours, asking about Sarah, about me, about every detail of the investigation. It was painful at times revisiting all that, but it was also cathartic. Jessica contributed too, sharing her perspective. Frank gave an emotional interview about his relationship with Sarah and his regret for not having been braver when she was alive. The book was released a year and a half after Carter's conviction. It was called The Voice of Silence: How a Dead Daughter Brought Justice from Beyond. The response exceeded any expectation. The book became a bestseller in a few weeks. I received hundreds of messages from people who had been touched by the story, some sharing their own experiences with loss and the search for justice, others simply thanking me for having the courage not to give up. I started giving lectures at universities, at corporate events, at meetings for crime victims. I spoke about Sarah, about bravery, about never giving up on the truth, even when everything seems lost. And in every lecture, I felt I was keeping Sarah alive, not just her memory, but her values, her convictions, her courage. 2 years after the book release, I received a letter. It was from a woman in Chicago who had read the story. She worked at a company where she suspected grave irregularities. She was afraid to report it, afraid of the consequences. But after reading about Sarah, she found courage. She reported it. And thanks to that, a scheme of tens of millions was discovered, and those responsible were arrested. "Your daughter inspired me to do the right thing," she wrote. "And I know there is risk, but like you said in your lecture, some principles are worth more than our own safety. Thank you for sharing your story." I cried reading that letter. Sarah was saving people even after death. Her legacy kept growing. Jessica started working at a nonprofit that supported whistleblowers and protected witnesses in corruption cases. She was directly inspired by Sarah's story. Frank became an activist, fighting for better legal protections for those who report corporate crimes. All of us, each in our own way, kept Sarah's flame burning. 3 years after the final trial, I decided to do something I had been postponing. I donated all of Sarah's clothes, her books, her belongings. I no longer needed them to remember her. She was alive in my heart, in the stories I told, in the good she still did in the world. But I kept a few things. The teddy bear, some photos, the notebook now permanently blank, but still precious. And that night, sitting in my living room, I felt a peace I had not felt in years. Sarah was at peace. I was at peace. The journey had been long, painful, terrifying, but it was worth it. It was. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear, it was all worth it. Because in the end, justice was done. The truth prevailed, and the love between mother and daughter proved to be stronger even than death. The years passed gently after that. It is not that the pain of loss disappeared completely. It never disappears when you lose a child. But I learned to carry that pain in a different way, no longer as an overwhelming weight, but as a constant reminder of how much love we shared. My apartment changed over the years. I did a small renovation, painted the walls, bought new furniture. But I kept one room exactly as it was, Sarah's room. It became a kind of sanctuary, not in a morbid sense, but as a place to remember. Friends and family who visited always passed by there, looked at the photos, shared memories. Jessica got married. It was a small but beautiful ceremony. She carried a bouquet with Sarah's photo tied to the flowers. "So my cousin is here with me," she explained with tears in her eyes. I cried during the entire ceremony, tears of happiness mixed with sadness. Sarah should have been there, but somehow I knew she was. I continued with the lectures. I traveled all over the country telling the story, and in every city I found people with their own stories of loss, of struggle, of seeking justice. Many times I stayed hours after the lectures, just talking, listening, supporting. One woman in particular marked me. She had lost her son in suspicious circumstances 5 years prior. The police had closed the case as suicide, but she knew it was not true. After hearing me speak, she decided to reopen the investigation. A year later, she called me crying. They had discovered her son had been murdered by a co-worker. The killer was convicted. "You gave me hope when I had none," she told me. "Thank you." But not everything was looking back. Slowly, I was relearning to live in the present, to make plans for the future. I went back to painting. It was a hobby I had abandoned decades ago. I bought paints, canvases, brushes. At first, I painted only Sarah, portraits of her at various ages, landscapes she loved, scenes from memories we shared. But eventually, I started painting other things. Still lifes, abstracts, landscapes. It was therapeutic, liberating. I made new friends, too. In the grief support group I started attending, I met other mothers and fathers who had lost children. We met weekly, shared our pains, our joys, supported each other. They understood in a way no one else could. One of those friends, Linda, became especially close. She had lost her daughter in a traffic accident 8 years ago. We clicked immediately. We started having coffee together, going for walks, going to the movies. It was comforting to have someone who understood the pain without needing explanations. 5 years after the final trial, there was a special event. The government was inaugurating a new whistleblower protection law, and they had named it SARA, the Sarah Santos Law, for the protection of corporate crime whistleblowers. I was invited to the ceremony at the state capitol. Jessica, Frank, and Jason went with me. It was surreal seeing my daughter's name engraved in bronze on a plaque, knowing her legacy was literally changing the country. During my speech at the ceremony, I almost could not finish. I looked at that plaque, at all those important people gathered there because of my daughter's bravery, and the tears simply would not stop. Sarah did not want to be a hero, I managed to say. She just wanted to do the right thing, and she paid the ultimate price for it. But her death was not in vain. Every person this law protects, every report that leads to justice, every scheme that is dismantled, all of that is her legacy, and I could not be prouder. After the ceremony, several people sought me out. Whistleblowers who had been protected by the new law, prosecutors who had used the law to build cases, journalists who had investigated corruption with the new protections. Everyone wanted to thank me, share how Sarah had impacted their lives. I went home from that event feeling immense gratitude. Sarah was dead, yes, but she was more alive than ever in the lives she touched, in the changes she catalyzed. 7 years after her death, I finally managed to visit the accident site. I had avoided it all that time. I could not face it. But now, feeling stronger, more healed, I decided to go. It was a common highway, nothing special. But there on that curve where Sarah's car had gone off the road, I finally managed to visualize her last moments. And instead of paralyzing pain, I felt a strange peace. I put flowers at the spot. I stayed there for a long time, just watching the movement of the cars, feeling the wind, listening to the birds. "You made a difference, Sarah," I whispered. "Your life mattered. Your death mattered. And I am going to keep making it matter." When I went back home that day, I found a surprise. My editor had called me. The book was being adapted for a movie. A big production company had bought the rights. They wanted to tell Sarah's story to the whole world. I was torn at first. The idea of actors playing my pain, my journey, was disturbing. But Jessica convinced me. Think about how many more people will know the story, how many more lives can be touched, changed. Sarah deserves it. I participated actively in the production. I met the actress who would play me, a talented woman who took the role very seriously. She interviewed me for hours to capture my essence. The actress playing Sarah was even more dedicated, watching all the videos I had of my daughter, studying her mannerisms, her voice. The movie premiered 3 years later. I went to the premiere with Jessica, Frank, Linda, and several other friends. It was devastating to watch, seeing Sarah's death reenacted. Seeing my journey of pain and discovery on the big screen, I cried during the whole movie. But when the lights came up and the entire theater stood in applause, I knew it had been worth it. The story was being told. Sarah's legacy was being spread. The movie was a success. It won awards, was nominated for an Oscar. But more importantly, it started conversations about corruption, about whistleblower protection, about the bravery of doing the right thing, even when it costs everything. 10 years after Sarah's death, I woke up one morning with a strange sensation. It was not pain, it was not sadness, it was acceptance, true peace. I looked at her photo on the nightstand, my beautiful girl frozen forever at 28 years old, and I smiled. "Good morning, my love," I said softly. "Thank you for everything, for having been my daughter, for teaching me about bravery, for continuing to guide me even after leaving." I got up and went to make coffee. While I waited, I opened the notebook for the first time in years, still blank as it had been since that last message. But this time, I grabbed a pen and started writing. "Dear Sarah, it has been 10 years. 10 years since I lost you. 10 years since I started this journey. And today, finally, I can say I am okay. I did not get over your loss. I will never get over it. But I learned to live with it. I learned to find joy again, purpose again. You taught me that. Even in death, you kept teaching me." I wrote for pages telling everything that had happened in the last few years, the victories, the difficulties, the small joys of everyday life. It was like writing a letter, knowing she was reading it somewhere. When I finished, I closed the notebook and put it away. I no longer needed it. I no longer needed signs or messages from beyond. I had everything I needed: memories, love, and the certainty that Sarah was proud of me. That afternoon, I went to visit her grave. I brought fresh flowers as always, but this time I did not cry. I just smiled. "I did it, Sarah. I managed to live. I managed to be happy again, and you are in everything I do, in every breath, in every day. You never really left. You are here." I touched my heart. Forever. The wind blew gently, moving the trees around, and I swear I heard very softly Sarah's laugh, not with my ears, but with my heart. I went back home with a light heart. Jessica had texted me inviting me to dinner. I accepted immediately. I stopped by the supermarket to buy dessert. I saw a movie I had wanted to see for a long time advertised at the cinema. I bought a ticket for the next day. I was living, really living. And I knew that wherever Sarah was, she was smiling. Because in the end, that was what she always wanted, Not for me to stay trapped in the past in pain and grief, but for me to find justice, yes, and then move on. That I live the life she could not live. That I be happy for both of us. And that was what I was doing. Every day, every moment, every breath was for me and for her. That night before sleeping, I looked out the window at the starry sky. I found the brightest star and smiled. Good night, Sarah. I love you. I will always love you. And thank you for calling me that night, for guiding me, for not letting me give up. You saved many lives, including mine. I closed the curtains and went to bed. For the first time in 10 years, I slept without weight in my heart, without guilt, without paralyzing pain, without regrets, only with love. Eternal love for a daughter who, even in death, had taught me the greatest lessons about life, bravery, and justice. And the next morning, I woke up with the sun hitting my face and a clear thought. Today would be a good day, and tomorrow would be another, and I would keep living, loving, making a difference. For me, for Sarah, for all of us. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe, and tell me in the comments which part left you speechless. Oh, and do not forget to become a member to have access to exclusive videos that I do not publish here. I will see you there.